morning, everyone. Welcome to Culture Road, a show that talks about contemporary issues as they relate to culture. With me today, as usual, are my co-hosts, Angela Mosley and Phil Barrell.
Hi.
How is everyone?
Good morning, afternoon, really.
Good,
Yeah.
good.
It's New York is a little bit kind of, weather is not great today. I think it's been a little bit feisty the last couple of days, and so that brings in some things. But it comes after such a long period, and anyway.
The sun is shining. Is the sun shining?
No.
No.
Gray, wet day.
Very kind of wet. Yes.
Okay.
I wanted us to talk about something about work, about the job situation. And that is because I've been hearing so many, some of you have also heard about this. Across the nation, and there are a lot of governors that are taking away unemployment and other social safety nets right now because there's a claim. There's a claim going on that we're giving people money so that they don't work. That the government is subsidizing sitting down and doing nothing. It's an interesting thing, and I think it was triggered more by last month's jobs data, which kind of showed that the job market is a little bit not tight. People expected that as we get out of the coronavirus mode, that there's going to be a lot of work, and we'll go back to normal, which I do believe is happening right now.
Yeah.
And tomorrow we shall be having another data. Usually, you have this data, and they get revised often. I spent quite more than a decade just covering this data and how it affects how people think. Now, today in the morning, there was data that came out of a company called ADP. ADP is a payroll company, and they usually have a preview of what the government data is going to be coming up, is going to be showing. And the preview data this morning showed that the job market is actually improving so much. Initial unemployment fell. That is, those people who are going to look for government insurance, employment insurance, because they've been laid off, fell to the lowest level in more than a year, to the lowest level back to the day before COVID, mid-March. In April last year, we were having about 6 million people unemployed, freshly unemployed. That data has gone down to 385. A healthy labor market, which means everybody is hired and working, is about 200 to 250. So we're just heading towards a full employment. But if you look at so many other data, one of the things you're finding out is that we still have about 10 million people who are not working for one reason or another. So this idea that we have a very, very good unemployment benefits that is keeping people from work is gaining traction. I highly doubt it, but it's gaining traction because of what I do believe is the culture of how we look at business. The business community are very good at devising some kind of a narrative, and that narrative has taken a hold so that reporters continue to parrot the same thing. Oh, there's so many work there, the employers can't find workers. And so I wanted us to talk about that in light of, what is going on right now. We're coming back from COVID, and there are so many changes that have occurred since we went on a lockdown. so many things have occurred. The nature of work itself has changed. And Phil, I was just wanting you to take a stab at it. What have you seen going on, and this issue of we have so much work, there's nobody to work, and so get these guys off their off their couches and let them go to work.
Listen, Troy, this, first of all, let's be clear. The governors that have taken this step to slash unemployment benefits are exclusively Republicans. Okay, this is an obsession of Republicans, of conservatives. This idea that unemployment benefits, welfare, what have you, any kind of this kind of social safety net benefit encourages people not to work. That's basically the idea. And it's absurd. It's a canard. It's nonsense. I mean, I will let me share something with the audience. I had a period in my life when I was on unemployment, and the fact is that first of all, it doesn't last forever. There's always a limit to how long you can collect, and second of all, the money you get, I mean, the money the average person collects in unemployment benefits is really not sufficient to, maybe he or she can sustain themselves for a while. But if you have children, if you have any kind of a family, no, it is not enough. It doesn't work. So the idea that, oh, it's this wonderful benefit and people are like, why should I go back to work? No, it's complete garbage. Now, what explains then the idea? Because I have heard these stories that businesses, small businesses, what have you, in different parts of the country are claiming that they can't hire people, that, people are not, or that people interview with them and then decide not to take the job and they can't fill these positions. Well, what's happening is, I think, and several other people have suggested this, one impact of COVID and of being out of work is that it has caused people to kind of take a look at what kind of jobs, what their employment situation was in the first place. And I think that many of them have just come to the conclusion that they are no longer going to take whatever job they can get, that they are coming back into these interviews and telling the potential employer, okay, wait a minute, you're going to pay me how much? Okay, or you're going to have me work how many hours?
Exactly.
Right, exactly. Many of them, some of them may have left jobs where the boss was harassing them sexually. They have a meeting with a guy and they suspect that maybe he's going to be the same way. They could be wrong, but they've been burned by that experience and they don't take the job, thinking mainly of female workers for that reason. The point is that the workers, I think, the potential workers are becoming more choosy, perhaps because they know that this is a seller's market and they're the ones selling their services, and partly just because they've had the chance to kind of, contemplate what their situation is and said, we're not going to take it anymore. You are not going to kind of put a gun to my head and say, hey, you got to take this job or you can't feed your kids, because I know there are other jobs out there. And I'm just, they are not going to be at the mercy of the employer. And I think there are a number of employers, particularly in the smaller businesses, in the rural areas, what have you, who they're not used to that. They don't like that. So they start blaming unemployment benefits and they tell their governors, their politicians, and the governors, of course, believe that already. And you're seeing this effect going on. It's, I'm not saying it's totally in everyone's head, but there's a lot of assumptions out there that need to be challenged.
Right. How about you, Angela?
Yeah, I think it's a kind of a place in time where a lot of people are now realizing their value and worth with a lot of things, because some of the work that a lot of people were engaged in, it was toiling mentally and physically on their bodies. And with the COVID stuff and a lot of things shutting down, people took a break, like physically took a break, because I think the environment within America, and I, traveled to other places, but specifically within America is always go, 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 go. You got to do. And if you're sitting down and you're not working, you're seen as lazy. You're seen as, so many different other things that people, attribute to you for that. But COVID caused us to stop take a pause, because we always, talk about, I'm gonna take a vacation, or I'm gonna sit down, or I'm gonna, give myself a break. But COVID actually caused us to do that. And when we did that, it made us realize what was important to us, what priorities is important to us.
Right.
So you have a lot of people that, start putting more emphasis on family, spending time with family. Some of them probably didn't want to spend too much time with family, but some of them spent time with family. And they start realizing that they were missing out on a lot of things with their family, with their children growing up and stuff like that. And it was taking a toll on them mentally as well as physically, because if you're not together mentally, it started affecting how you the stress of your body, how you take certain things in. And that COVID allowed us to see that in a different perspective. And you had some employers that were not paying a lot of their people what they were worth for a lot of different reasons, and people start taking notice of that. And in conversation with some people who were getting unemployment, they were saying they were making more money on unemployment than actually being on the job. So, hey, it's a give and takes, but I think a lot of people start realizing the power that they have with their employers. So if you're going to bring me back to the job and have me work some crazy hours, you're going to pay me what I'm worth. So I think that's where we're at.
That's an interesting thing, actually, and I agree with the both of you on that. I was just listening in the morning to Stephanie, who is a reporter on MSNBC. And I agree with what she said, that what we are seeing is a shift in the labor market. It is not what they're saying, which is that these people are not sure because they're shoddy workers, that they just want to sit on their whatever. But there's a big shift. Exactly. There's a big shift that you guys are alluding to, which I think is true. If you think about what happened over the past 1 year, there was a pandemic in our century. But this was interesting because of the trauma that a lot of people still are undergoing. For those who saw their loved ones fall sick, and within weeks, they're dead, and they were not even allowed.
Yeah, exactly.
To see them.
Yep.
They were not allowed to see them. And in some cases, this was not like one road accident or one person dying there. Some families had multiple people dying one after another, or even together. And that takes a lot out of you. And as you said, if you have a child, for example, you realize you have children and you've not been, being with them, and the idea of family took on a new meaning. And so people understand that families are very important. Number one, it is the only way we survive. But at the same time, work does not have to be the way it used to be.
Yeah.
Because it turns out that brick and mortar is really not work. Going to a specific place to work there is really not it. That being tied to one company is really not it. There's so many people who are now doing online work, whether they are fully employed or they have gigs. And that is just one way of us revolutionizing, of our society revolutionizing the way they see work. And I think, for example, those who are graduating right now, this is a whole change to their own system. They never grew up, first of all, in a situation where they were going to one place of work, because things were already changing before COVID. And then COVID came, and then they basically have been home doing just about everything, using their phone. Phone is more important right now than the house.
Yeah. No, I mean, George, right. And so, some of what you say, I think, adds to what you say about spending more time with family. That's why we're seeing even more of a push for parental leave and putting that into law. than we did. I mean, this movement was building for some time, but I think the pandemic really accelerated it to some degree. And I think, again, that's something where you can find it more easy perhaps for the larger corporations to grant that than for the smaller businesses, but all businesses really have to take that into account moving forward. Now, in terms of what you just said, though, what's interesting, I think, is that we can start out when we talk about unemployment. I think we mostly see that as kind of a blue collar working class issue. But I agree, the pandemic has affected the way middle and upper class folks, like, us, look at work as well. I mean, my job, at NYU is one where I would typically, I commuted 4 days a week. The fifth day, I was allowed to work from home. Everybody now, our bosses, the heads of the university, are talking about a phased return for the fall, when nobody at this point is going to be there 5 days a week. Maybe it'll be 3 days, maybe 4, maybe it'll be, sort of a shifting where some people have certain days and other people have others. And I am fine with that. I really am. I find that, once my boys are out of the house and in school, I can work fine from home. The kind of work I do, the fewer distractions I have, the better. And I've been telling my supervisor that, hey, I'll take 3, I'll take 4 from home. I don't mind, because even meetings do not have to be in person anymore. And I think my situation, you can extrapolate that, because I've heard there's been a lot of stories about in many larger companies, corporations, institutions, what have you, you have similar situations where the higher level, the white collar workers are saying, why do I have to fly 3,000 miles to another city and stay in some anonymous hotel for a 2-hour meeting in person? What is the big deal with having this meeting? We've been doing Zoom meetings for the last 2 years. Why not keep it up in these instances? If you live in the city, come to the meeting in person, but the rest of us shouldn't have to fly in like that. And so I think that there is this rethinking at every level, both blue collar and white collar, as to what is demanded of an employee and what he or she owes to his or her employer. And that, I think, is a good thing.
I think that's true, and I think we used to. I attended so many conferences. It used to be, as a reporter, I would go to so many conferences. Part of that was about 2 things. You want to know the people. You want to have more contacts. You want to see things the way they are, but that is no longer the case. Number one, as a reporter, I remember it's 10 years ago since I started going out to. I last went out to cover somebody, like this. That I'm going to cover somebody live. Well, I've been covering people live last 10 years, but not this way. Not going to see them. Basically, because we could use various kinds of applications to do that. We can now actually cover everybody using Zoom, just about everything you want. And then, because everything not only is it digitalized, but also we rely a lot more on paper rather than what somebody tells you. Mm-hmm. So you can, as a reporter, and it's very easy just to dig deep, go to the records and find what you want, and then get somebody on Zoom and get their voiceovers, and basically you're done. For most people, that was a way to extend their networks for maybe a potential job or potential business deal. But they realize that they can do that just about with a Zoom, or if not Zoom, then there's just so many technologies. Now, WebEx is there. You have so many other video conferencing.
Yeah.
Yes. So
I have to say, though, the conferences, I do miss going face-to-face conferences. That did not work for me with Zoom. That did not work at all. No.
That's true. That's true.
I think agree. There are always some situations where face-to-face human contact is a nice thing. And as journalists, George, listen. I mean, if there's a street demonstration, you got to go cover the street demonstration. You can't do that. It's just a question of how many of these instances are necessary moving forward.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yes. It's another balance in life and work and life. If you think about now you're able to go with the boys out, and you're able to be a real dad who goes out with them to the ball plays and all those kind of things. And I've seen a lot of young parents just working and having their kids playing back, playing behind them, and it just works okay. There are some disruptions, but those are some of the things that yeah, this morning I saw another one. There's so many disruptions, and the other thing is that there are no longer so many fights within companies, so many fights that used to occur just because people were all together. You can always zoom somebody out.
But then also, again, another thing that's coming up as we are shifting in the work environment, I think that some employers think they have a little bit more access to their people. I mean, they're sending emails at 1 o'clock in the morning. I'm in bed. Do not send me an email. I'm not about to answer your email at 12 o'clock. No, go to bed. Seriously.
Actually, that is interesting. It's very true. For me, I started working from home 10 years ago. And what I noticed was that I was working harder and more hours than before. And they were just fine with that, because you get up and go straight to your desk. You're working at 7 o'clock and 7 p.m. You're working much later because you don't have to go anywhere. And they have you trapped. In fact, some companies now, they're actually monitoring you using the phone that they've given you. And in some cases, they don't even give you the phone. They have your phone, but they're tracking you.
Say no.
So it's gaining one way, but also losing in other respects. So, but the problem we have is that we are missing the point. One that we are talking about, nobody talks about. What they have in the media is a narrative that has been constructed by the Chamber of Commerce, because the Chamber of Commerce is aligned with the Republicans. The Chamber of Commerce wants to this narrative to continue, that we're getting a lot more money from the government for some reason, because that will play well politically for their folks, and that everybody else should go to work, even though sometimes there's no work. I don't think that when you have McDonald's paying people less than $15 an hour, that is work somebody can rely on.
Yeah.
I just saw a story from California about, what does McDonald's think workers are? Slaves?
Free labor.
But McDonald's is just one of them, because there's so many companies that find it so difficult to raise your salary.
Yes.
While they double the salaries or some kind of remuneration that they give their CEOs. It is absolutely horrendous that CEOs are now earning about, on an average, 600 times the average pay of an employee.
With bonuses and other stuff too.
Stock buyback.
And when they're fired, they get even more money.
A very nice
parachute.
Yes.
Right. Yeah.
And George, you're so on point with regards to the narrative that you're talking about, that the chambers of commerce and everything is putting out. Because during all the time that when more people was working from home, but it goes a little further back, there was one CEO, he's a billionaire out in like the Washington state area, and he talked about how it was about 6 years ago that he actually cut his salary down and paid his employees a minimum of $70,000.
Yes, the young man.
And when that happened, you had a lot of Republicans and other people saying, what is this, socialism? You're not supposed to do this. And actually, his company became a case study with Harvard Business And he said because of that, they said that his company wasn't going to work, it was going to, you know, fall through. But he said because of that, his employees were able to, his revenue tripled. His employees were able to buy, you know, homes, purchase things, and pay off so much debt. And it actually helped the company and actually brought more employees into his business. So his business, you know, actually did so much better than what was expected. But you have a lot of CEOs who think that they should be making all the money for cheap, which is why, you know, going back to the unemployment stuff, they're upset because people are not wanting to come back to work for the cheap amount of money that they were paying them.
Right, right. I mean, work and patriotism, Phil. Talk about that. Who is more patriotic to a company or to an employer? Is it a CEO or that mid-level or lower-level employee who is, you know, toiling day and night to bring in some kind of good productivity? Well, the CEO often does what? Goes to the golf course. Golf course, yes.
If you want to talk about patriotism, I mean, what is patriotic about parking your company in some or its official headquarters in some offshore tax haven like the Cayman Islands so that you can avoid paying taxes to what supposedly is your government? No, you can go on and on about how, you know, patriotic many corporations can be. But let me go back to one thing you were saying, George, and the whole issue of kind of the worker rights and the workers' power. I mean, unfortunately, you know, the Chamber of Commerce narrative is gospel in Republican conservative circles. The basic idea is that if you are, number one, if you are rich, you got there because you worked harder and you were smarter than anybody else, which of course explains people like George W. Bush and Donald Trump. But, you know, second, the converse is, therefore, if you're not rich and successful, there must be something wrong with you. You obviously are either lazy or lack the discipline and the morals to succeed, and therefore you don't deserve these special breaks. It's really, it's not, you know, some liberals will often say, well, it's because the corporations, you know, hand out all these bribes to politicians that they get the laws twisted in their favor. And there's some truth to that. But there is also a belief among many of these politicians, as I say, particularly Republican politicians, that we want to help you guys. We admire you guys. We believe that you deserve everything that we can do for you. And of course, part of that is the whole job creation myth. You know, these are job creators. You have to give them tax breaks. You have to give them, you know, whatever they want, because they are creating jobs for the rest of us. There are two things wrong with that theory. First of all, as we've been talking about today, some of those jobs are pretty lousy. They don't pay well. They have all kinds of other conditions, you know, terrible hours, what have you, that are not helpful to the average person. And number two, very often they don't use their money to create jobs. They put them into buying back their own stocks or doing other things to line their own pockets. And this has been proven again and again. But again, this myth is like, as I say, it's like gospel to a certain type of Republican conservative, and it just cannot die. And so you have organizations like the Chamber of Commerce who keep promoting that. And let me just say one other thing, that one problem, one reason that we have this situation now, or why this situation of, let's say, CEO salary compared to worker salary has gotten so much worse in the last 40 years is, and I'm not the first person to say this, the decline of unions in this country. If you had a stronger union presence, if more workers were able or allowed to organize, if there were more protections for them that you generally get through strong unions, you would not have a lot of these issues right now. And this has been demonstrated in the golden age of labor power, which was basically from World War II through, I would say, the early to mid 70s. You had a much better deal for the average worker. He would know that his job was secure unless he really screwed up. He would know that, you know, he would have some kind of retirement benefits. He would know that he would have reasonable time off. I mean, not the kind of time we're talking about today, but, you know, he would not be asked to work ridiculous hours, and he would know that his salary would go up with inflation. And all of these things are either not the case at all or in jeopardy today. And one strong reason is because the power of unions has been so reduced in this country.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, you know, there are sorry.
No, go ahead, Phil.
I was going to say there were different reasons for that. I mean, people always talk about Ronald Reagan, you know, destroying the air controllers union, and that kind of gave a signal to both government and employers that they could kind of give the back of their hands to unions. That's been part of it. There have been more of these anti-union laws passed in many states. But to be fair, there's also the fact that many of the workers who originally benefited by unions have moved up into the middle class. And you know, there are more workers today who feel they don't need a union, whereas their fathers and grandfathers knew that they absolutely needed a union. However, in their place are new classes of workers, you know, many of them immigrants, first generation, people of color, who still need unions very, very badly. And we need to restore the balance in that regard. Otherwise, these problems are going to persist.
And another thing about the union things that comes to mind, so specifically, I'm thinking about like the teachers' unions. Like you have some of the people that do get higher in rankings in some of the unions, and then they start lining their pockets with the money and not even thinking about the causes and some of the issues that the teachers and other people that are that they're supposed to be representing, they're not taking that to heart. Because I'm thinking about some of the challenges that has been happening more so lately within the Chicago area and their union reps and different things like that, and some of the things that they should be fighting for, and thinking that their higher reps are in support and have their back. A lot of them have been given money and been handed things over, and they're not actually doing what they're supposed to be doing as the rep for their teachers.
Oh, agreed. Don't you think plenty of unions that have behaved badly over the years? Yeah. However, you know, we all know about the Teamsters, for example, but you can't use that. That's another argument that conservatives often make. Oh, these unions, they're mob dominated, they're corrupt. Okay, some have been. That's not an excuse for not allowing union power to increase. So sorry, George, go.
Is there a way we can change the culture? Because to me, if I go back to whether we're talking about unions, but unions are coming in because we've taken the workforce, or rather the workplace. We've made it basically a platform for contest between the management and the workers. Pretty much, you know, I don't want to be accused of being a communist because I'm not, nor am I a socialist because I'm not. But it just goes back to what that German said, you know, the German who talked about the haves and the have-nots, whose name shall never be talked about.
Yes.
Because, I mean, we always want to win. Somebody wants to win. And whoever wins does not care about the person who is won, the person who has lost. And so the unions came about because they realized that as individuals, the balance of power was against them. And to rebalance that power, they had to come together and work as the world, unite, so that you can have enough power. And that is why they're busting unions, and they've been busting unions for the last 40 or so years. But they could not bust unions if they didn't have a narrative. And what is that narrative built on? On lies. In fact, if you think about, you know, maybe 15 years ago, when George Bush, his administration, maybe he wasn't, but he was very good in doing one thing. He was very good in maintaining one message. Typically, it would be a lie, but he would repeat it so many times that the message would go through and people would start to believe it. And of course, when Trump came in, what did he do? He just took it a notch higher, perhaps 3 notches higher. So lies are now being used to build a narrative that allows them to govern. And the government, that a governing structure that allows us to have this situation whereby people are working and they can't afford to live. Mm-hmm. Here's one example. Amazon. They keep on saying Amazon has a lot of jobs. I have actually looked at Amazon. I actually signed up and see what's going on. So Amazon wants you to go and work for, because they've been forced, $15 an hour. and they say, we'll give you actually more money if you sign up. The way that they advertise it, they're giving you $18 an hour. And then you go in and then they start saying, well, actually it's $15 an hour, but if you work the graveyard shift from midnight to 5 o'clock in the morning, 5:30, then we give you $2.50 more. So you get $17.50 an hour. And what they also say, once you get in, is that you don't go to the bathroom. You are on your toes throughout. You are on your toes throughout. You are allowed to have some break for 10 minutes. So all these 10 hours, you have a break for 10 minutes. How many people can manage that? So when you're out here and you have to evaluate how your family, survived COVID, and then they're telling you that you got to go to work under those conditions, what are you going to say? What is more important to you?
Wow.
Yeah, no, truly. Yeah.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah. So we have changed our culture, and as you say, union busing, Ronald Reagan started it about 40 years ago or 45 years ago, and now everybody thinks that the best way to win is to tell lies and to triumph over somebody else. Your win is somebody's misery. I think that's a question of culture that has to be rectified. The problem is, how do we do that? How do we change culture? It changes when there is an event, just like what happened over the last 1 year. People are reevaluating and changing, and they're making decisions on the basis of how their lives have changed.
And I also think that with these changes, there is kind of a generational shift as well. And it's a little frustrating for some of the older, the parents. Specifically, you have a lot more young people who are going against the notion of you have to go to a traditional four-year school to get a degree, to be working for somebody else. And then also thinking that you have to stay with the company for 20 plus years. And talking to a lot of young people, they will, and even some employers, there's a big, frustration with the employers mostly, because they're like, we can't get people to come in to work. We can't get the young people to come in even for an interview. And they're having some frustrations with recruitment and retention and stuff. But a lot of the young people is like, okay, I'm gonna work for you for 20 plus years. What is this gonna benefit me? They're realizing that the story that their parents had told them, like the company's going to take care of you, they're going to provide you with insurance, they're going to do all of this. A lot of the young people are starting to see through that lie. And they're like, okay, this doesn't work for me. So it's frustrating the people at the top, specifically because they're not making money off the labor force or anything like that. But I also am starting to see a change in the younger generation who are wanting to now work for themselves, who are becoming more entrepreneurial in ideas, who are inventing new things because of the digitization of where we are with, social media, apps, and all of this. I have some, mixed feelings about what an influencer is, but that's another conversation. But this is where we are. The mindset is even shifting for the younger people in what is important to them. I'm not about to sit behind a desk for 8 hours, can't take a bathroom break, can't do all this, and you're trying to see what my numbers are for the day. And if I don't make my quota for the day, then I get a citation and write-up. So this shift has been going down the pipeline, I think, and it's starting to change a lot within just an American culture that I think that we need to, take notice of, really.
Influencer.
No,
Phil,
that's another podcast. That's a whole other podcast.
That's a good job,
Yeah.
I was actually, I wanted to be an influencer. I thought it was a very cool job. And I was trying to look for the meaning of
this, this is why don't we get 5,000 followers? All right.
Yes.
Okay, someday, right. No, I was going to say, seriously, Angela, I agree with you. I mean, we all hear about the stereotype of the millennial or the Gen Xer. They don't want to work. They want the job, only the perfect job. They're too picky. Blah, blah. No, part of it is that, like the blue collar workers that we spoke of earlier, they've just decided that, there's a certain amount of garbage that they're not going to take on a job, and they're going to have certain standards which are really not unreasonable standards. And, I think looking at the larger situation here, we have to acknowledge that why should the average worker today, why does the average employer have the right to demand this kind of take it or leave it attitude from the worker, when if you look at the record of so many companies over the last 40 or 50 years, it used to be that there was kind of a compact between labor and capital, if you will, that, okay, you will do this for us, maybe some things that you don't like, but we will provide you with a certain degree of security. You can put, food on the table, you save up enough to send your kids to college, and you'll have something for your own comfortable retirement. That has gone out the window. And I think so many young people today, and so many people even in their 30s and 40s, have lived through the last couple of decades and seen so many pension plans wiped out, so many companies themselves, go under, sold to the kind of rapacious capitalist who just basically will, kill the company and sell off the assets, and he doesn't care. So why should they be loyal? There's been no loyalty one way. Why should they be loyalty the other way? And this is also what you're seeing going on here.
That's true. And quite frankly, new ideas, the new generation, actually, they have very good ideas and new ideas. The problem is that our generation and the generation before us, we are stuck in our old ways, and we are not adaptive to the environment. And that's not even good leadership. I think the best thing would be to try to tap into that talent that the young generation are having, Gen Xers and all that. You could have a situation, I have a friend, not a friend, but I have a young person who was supposed to be joining us today. He's not there, of course. But I'll tell you more about him. But he's a very good kid, a marvelous writer. And it is me to actually find out from him what he wants. I don't have to go and tell him, you have to do this. It is me to find out what he has to offer. And that relationship of respect going both ways is important. Because as you said, these days, a lot of bosses just fire you just like that, which means that, they don't have any respect for you. They don't have any investment in you. So why would you, as a young person coming to work, have an investment in them?
Right.
It has to be reciprocal. Mm-hmm. And so we have to change with the times. And nobody says that we should always do what worked before. Well, maybe it had worked before, but it can't work right now. And the change is always very difficult when you're starting out. Definitely. But it is inevitable.
Yeah, I think that because I can remember in having conversations specifically when working more community-based stuff and working with some of the people that were on the front lines and, making changes within policy, within community and stuff. And when the young people would come and volunteer and offer their young blood, they were really happy about that. But when the young people were asking, okay, we're ready to take leadership, we're ready to step up, they're like, no, young blood, you're not ready. You don't, have the skill set. They were not willing to turn the reins over and utilize the skill set that the young people did have. So by this time, the young people were frustrated with hearing the same thing over. You're not ready. You're not ready. So now they're like, okay, I'm not ready. I'll go start something myself. And then you have a lot of the, folks from the older generation, like, I don't understand what these young people are doing. They out here just all willy-nilly with, no mindset, no focus. You didn't teach them focus. You didn't give them skill sets, to build upon. So it's that back and forth that a lot of people, didn't want to sit down and have that dialogue and teach the young people what happened. And then you have some, big-headed, high-minded young people who didn't want to listen, but that's part of life. And finding that mid-ground to help the younger people move things forward without neglecting the young people, the older people, and making them feel like they were not important anymore. So I think that's kind of where we are with how we're looking at just where work and stuff, the work industry and stuff is today.
Collaboration is key. That company you talked about in out west,
yes,
did a very good thing, and Chobani as well. Chobani, Chobani also, what Chobani did was to allow employees to buy into the company, so that they were working as equity holders. And it ended up happening is that productivity rose, because people realized that people deal with you the way you deal with them. If you deal with people with respect, they will deal with you with respect. And so Chobani actually made a lot of money out of that, because the workers, employees realized that, what, this person cares for me. And that's a key issue. At Harvard Business School, which is one of the, by the way, a lot of corporate America is coming out. This theater, this idea of management and leadership in business is kind of coming out of the Harvard Business School model. But they are now changing and starting to teach something that is so different from what they've been doing before, which is you have to treat people like they're your own. Treat them the way you'd want to be treated. Have communications, a very free line of communications. Be out for them, for their own welfare, so that they can be out for your own welfare. I was listening to one of the online courses they had yesterday. It was marvelous. And that's why, some companies rise and some companies fall.
Yeah, that's why I think we see more and more profiles of companies where an important consideration is employee satisfaction. I'm sure in past generations, that was like, what? Are you kidding? Who cares about that? You should be thankful to have a job. So I agree with you, George. The culture is changing, and I think that it's not changing fast enough, but it's true. I think business has to really get out of the model that I think has been the norm for some time, of the race to the bottom, basically. Like, how can we cut costs, and on whose backs? Okay. And I would say that more and more I read business articles now, some of them saying that, okay, no, we're taking into account studies that show that a happy worker is a more productive worker. That if you don't focus on squeezing them and focus on making their lives easier, they will work harder for you, which will increase your profits. This is still a change that I think many companies and one political party have a great trouble accepting it, for the reasons that I've said. I mean, old beliefs, myths that you cling to die hard.
The trickle-down theory. That's what it's very vertical. It's very vertical. Look at where it has got us.
Yeah, but I think the change is happening, because I'd like to think we're getting to a point where, if you're a CEO or a small businessman and you want to ignore all this and you want to take through, you should be happy to have a job kind of attitude, then you're going to pay for it. You may crush the unions, but then your workers will go on social media. They will talk to activist groups. Boycotts will be organized. Things will be done. You can't take that kind of attitude and think that you will get away unscathed anymore, because in today's world, that's just not the case. So it seems to be that more and more companies, I hope, will take the attitude of, it makes more sense to go along with these changes rather than try to resist them to the bitter end. But we'll see.
And you just can't put a new coffee maker in the employees room. That's not going to help at all.
Yes, yes, a new wine and an old wine skin.
Right.
And by the way, I had invited I invited Cheryl to come over because she's a labor. She's an urban sociologist, and she works with the state controller's office. But she was going to campaign for Scott Stringer. And Scott Stringer is the guy who has been known to support worker rights. But look at how he is not doing well in the campaign to be mayor.
Well, one reason he's not doing well is because, a bunch of progressives knee-jerk bailed on him when this woman came out with her accusation, which, listen, I'm all in favor of women being heard and all that, but I just find it a little funny. I mean, I know we're almost at the end here, but just briefly, I'm sorry, I retain the right to be skeptical when somebody comes out a month before the election with
Yes.
Yes.
And what amazes me is that when a similar thing happened with Joe Biden last year, I mean, yes, everybody said, okay, let's hear her story. Let's investigate. It was investigated. And basically, reputable journalists found that this woman is a wingnut and it went out the window. What if they had done what so many people did with Stringer now? Closed ranks and said, okay, I just take her word for it. No need to look any further. That's it. Where would we be today? So
have they not found out that actually she was a supporter of Andrew Yang?
The one who accused Stringer?
Yes.
Oh, that's possible.
She actually was campaigning for Andrew Yang just before that and after this. So people are now looking into it a lot more, but it's coming too late and it's not going to help. And
so I don't think, I guess, to answer your question, George, to answer your question, George, I don't think, what I'm saying is I don't think that Stringer dropped in the polls mainly because he was considered too progressive. I think that I think this unfortunately did it. And a lot of people went to, I think have gone to some of the other candidates like Maya Wiley or Catherine Garcia.
Yes. But
Garcia would make a good mayor, but I'm glad they have ranked choice voting because I'm still putting Stringer first. That's my feeling.
Yes, but we see, Garcia also had her campaign workers demonstrating against her at the Battery Park City, and so the liberals basically they're not gonna make it. They're not gonna make it. So you're having Eric Adams, who was a Republican and actually is a cop and still supports the cops. And you have Andrew Yang, who yesterday said that Bloomberg was his best mayor and he wants to continue Bloomberg.
Oh my God. I swear, New York politics, y'all just is a soap opera.
It is, you're right, it is. All right, thank you so much. This has been one of the, it just went so quickly. This has been one of the best shows we've had because it touches on things that are affecting us right now. And so like everybody else, I enjoyed this. I think you also enjoyed it. And for those who are out there, we'd like you to subscribe, to share, and also to download. Until next time, bye-bye.